The first thing people
blast off.
The tag,
Yeah, baby. I'm trying to get my tablet on so I can share.
Cause we be shining brighter than the suckers.
What? I don't recognize this voice. Who is this? I feel left out.
You talked about performing here throughout DC lots of times.
I'm about to spit some shit.
Like a lot of the underground stuff, I realized I didn't know at the time.
We ran through DC every
Nice.
You guys ready to bring in the thing?
Just the whole damn.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
Yo, when Busta
Not the
Rhymes
scene,
had
put the
I
wallpaper.
would end right here.
Yes, please.
I would end right here. Around the corner. Y'all understand? It used to be on my album. Homecoming used to be the homecoming. Yo, the years when this one, KRS was out of his video was out.
Okay. Like 93 or something like that.
Oh, tablet.
Timberland Swamps.
I'm done.
Competition that's listening. Twice as interesting because I'm different. The difference in being a champ, they go in the distance. Ain't one to teach wizard. Tragic magic, mental dyslexic, be rapping backwards when I practice. Mentally hit, big like I'm taking a shit. Drink a whole Hennessy flip, but won't trip. See me in the corner rolling chocolate chips from Little Brick. We get it poppin' with the mass of the ball playing loose.
Hey y'all, we starting in a minute. I see Double R. What's up, Double R? Hey Joe, hey Jen. Good morning, happy Saturday. What happened?
I'm trying to share and I can't get to the...
Is the lighting less?
Yeah, it seems darker in here.
Yeah, I guess Jacob must have switched
There's not
it up
enough
before,
lights.
because it was usually this one would be over here. Remember this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm seeing that's like that's not tripod here, so I don't know what they were doing.
Is that gonna make it darker, like as far as what the broadcast audience is seeing?
I mean, no, it doesn't look that much different because
Okay.
the camera does automatically adjust in darker
Okay.
lights.
Okay.
It's just slightly grainier, but not enough that people looking on like smartphones think that would be able to tell or confuse. But I
Now I'm glowing. I feel fantastic.
can move these a little closer and they'll.
Yeah, no, I think my main concern is as far as like the quality of the final broadcast one.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest danger we're running with the lower light is the graininess, right?
The didn't I send you an image with the quote on it? Did I send that?
Oh, is that what you? I thought you
Yes.
wanted the. You guys
no.
wanted that.
Nothing.
Okay, I'll put that in.
Thank you, Todd. My buddy Todd from ATL.
Hey Todd. Oh, I remember him.
The world is a
Hi.
canvas image.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Thanks, Joe.
Share this to my. It's funny to watch you watching me on here. It's like what?
Is that the right one?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's
Nope.
pretty.
Alright. And whenever you guys are ready, let me know. I'll bring you
We're
the
ready,
intro.
man.
Ready?
Coming in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning.
Alright, 10 seconds.
Gotta sniff the crayons.
Coming in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Great morning and happy new day. This is CLB coming to you live from Listen Vision Studios with
Dr. Manny.
Dr. Manny St. Victor. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yes, we missed you too. And last week, both Dr. Manny and I were out, so we had a replay series last week. But before we get into all of that catching up, welcome to the show. Thank you for hanging with us. All of you Listen Vision viewers at WLVSradio.com all over the world. Also, welcome to our Facebook Live viewers. Woo! How are you all doing today? I trust you are well, ready for a fantastic weekend, or already in the midst of your weekend if you're on the other side of the world. Today, we're talking about #imagination, one of our favorite topics in the world. So before we do that, let's talk about how you can participate in this conversation. If you're new to the show, thank you for joining us as well. I don't want to leave you out. because all of you are integral parts of these conversations that we initiate on CLB Live. And the purpose of the show is to help all of us resist limiting beliefs, tap deeper into creative thinking, and live life at its highest potential. So today, as I said, we're talking about hashtag imagination. We hope you guys enjoyed last week's replay, which was hashtag Mindset Matters.
Yep.
That was a conversation. That was your first appearance here.
Yeah.
When we met for the first time in person.
Yeah.
Seems like such a long time ago.
Yeah, the time is flying, man.
It is when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
Yes, honey. So today we're going to talk about imagination, and the notable quotable is, "The world is but a canvas for our imagination," and that's Henry David Thoreau. Love that quote.
I did too.
I have so many favorites, though, when it comes to imagination, because it's linked to the power of creative thought.
It is.
So how do you participate? By watching right now. I hope you have your cup of whatever. If it's not what you want, just imagine it to be what you want. It has the same effect. And you can also participate through Facebook Live and shape the conversation with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on imagination. And on the interwebs, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, Google+, you know the drill, Twitter, just use the hashtag CLB Live Chat. You'll see it there at the bottom of your screen if you're watching on WLVS. Did I forget anything?
Not that I can remember now.
All right.
If you did, I did too, so there.
So we're going to dive into this conversation and talk about imagination.
Sorry.
Does that sound go with imagination?
Imagination needs a sound. Like some weird hollow meditation bell type something.
And we have to acknowledge Twilight Sparkle.
Yeah.
Right?
Our imagination mascot.
She's our Imagineer, and I brought my crayons to write with because I love the smell of them.
You brought your crayons to sniff.
I sure did. I sure did. So I'm going to grab a color. Blue-green.
Awesome.
Okay? And let's get this conversation going. Imagination. So first and foremost, what is imagination? What is it? Because I always like to define stuff.
Yeah, my favorite definition of imagination goes back to Napoleon Hill's, that it's the workshop of your mind. It's where all this stuff comes in from the universe, and until you reach into imagination, you're kind of living in the past. You're projecting what has happened in the past into the future, or you're just thinking about stuff that has already happened and you're stuck by the boundaries that it's put on you. It's when you introduce imagination that you expand your consciousness. How's that for a start?
I love it. Tingling already, honey. Tingling already. So imagination is a workshop of the mind.
That's what I like.
That's what you like? I like that too. I like what Gary Busey says, the actor. Imagination is the hood ornament on the car of creativity.
Now you got me like, the old school term. I had to do that.
You got to bring it back out, right?
Yeah.
So I love that because our imagination does drive. It's the driving force of our creative power, our creative ability. And hi, Dr. Tanya G, by the way, over there in British Columbia.
I got doctors too.
We love you too.
We got doctors in the house.
Acknowledge the doctors in the house.
Dr. Connie, Dr. Tony. We got the Dr. Quorum, so I had to make sure we put y'all in a little doctor hug.
Group doctor hug. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, it's you mentioned something though about it shaping I forget exactly how you just phrased it. It creates whatever we're thinking. Whatever we're thinking is created externally.
Beyond that, whatever you're seeing, and as such, whatever you feel like you have an opportunity to act on.
Yeah. Now this is something that it's innate. We're born with it, right?
Yep.
So I want to talk a little bit about how do we get away from this thing called imagination, because we all have the ability and we're all imagining all day, every day. It's just a question of what we're imagining. We'll stick a pin there.
Yeah.
But what happens? We grow up, right? Life happens. We get jaded. Let's talk about that a little bit. How do we lose this imagination?
You don't lose it. You lose control of it. You lose curiosity about it, and you lose patience with it. And then words like impossible start to replace improbable, or impossible replaces inconceivable. And inconceivable means that you hit the edge of your imagination like a brick wall, your feelings get hurt, you get angry, you get to rushing people to finish something. Hurry up, get it done.
That is so true.
Which eliminates the whole element of opening up space for serendipity to pop in. That's your favorite word, right?
We're not going to talk about that today.
Yeah. Anyone who watches long enough knows that she has a serendipity thing. She's bigger into synchronicity.
Yes, I am synchronicity.
Yeah.
Yes.
But imagination opens you up for synchronicity.
Very true. Because as Napoleon Hill says, we were both talking about Napoleon Hill this morning. He's one of my imaginary counselors, invisible counselors, I should say. And he speaks about imagination, the creative force of imagination, being connected with infinite intelligence.
Yes.
So that outlines what you just shared about serendipity.
Yes.
But it's
it's worth backing up, and if we're going to bring up the creative, because a lot of you guys have read Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't, you should.
Yes.
But in the chapter in imagination, he talks about, he calls it synthetic.
Synthetic imagination.
But apparently in the updated version, they call it something new. Also synthetic, but synthesized imagination. Because apparently our culture associates synthetic with negative. So it's synthesized imagination and creative imagination. The synthesized imagination, according to Napoleon Hill, is what in psychology we call conceptual blending. It's where you put peanut butter and jelly together and you present it to people and you're like, peanut butter and jelly. And they're like, this is fascinating, fantastic, and delicious together. But really you've combined some things that were already present in the environment, present outside. Now, what Napoleon Hill calls the more powerful one is creative imagination. That's the imagination that comes from hunches, feelings, inspiration. It's when you create something from within where there's nothing there. We also call it being in flow, peak performance, being connected with the infinite, being connected to source. The main idea is that you're creating from a point of equanimity where you've gone so far inside that the outside elements aren't rattling your imaginary cage. So you're creating from a point of equanimity, pure creativity.
I like that. So let's go back. I pulled up Think and Grow Rich on my Kindle just so we can have it at our fingertips.
Yes.
But that's synthetic. I'm just going to use the word that Napoleon Hill uses.
Yeah.
Synthetic imagination. You mentioned peanut butter and jelly. So is that us using our human thinking to put things together and create things, is what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
There's a hesitancy there.
Because there's more, but you know how I get. I see a rabbit hole and I'm like, look, let's go. Squirrel.
This is why we're here.
Okay. So when we're talking about synthetic imagination, we're talking about, to a certain extent, you giving away your creative power because you've projected these energies, these feelings that you have onto things, and then you've convinced yourself that by combining these two outside elements, you're able to represent something that really you're feeling deep inside. Okay? It happens a lot when you hear music, when you watch a movie, or anything else that evokes a deep emotion where you cry or you're happy or you laugh based off something that was inside you, and you get that validation of seeing it outside of you. So synthetic imagination, to make it easier for people outside of your universe to see, uses things that are already outside and the meaning they have outside. So there's an element of projecting your power to these things and abdicating is the word that keeps coming to mind. Giving up an energy that was in you and assuming that the only way to get to that energy is through that object. That's why he says it's not. You're not pure creating. You're combining these things that are already existing
things and creating something new.
Yeah, and it's helpful.
A form of creation.
Yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful. It adds value in the business. In business, a lot of times you grab a bunch of things that have worked and you add one element from within you, and that's all it takes to catalyze it to a level of value to another audience.
True that. Here's my thinking on that with the synthetic imagination. I believe it is creative. Napoleon Hill said, I'm trying to find it, I can't find it. But there's a sentence where he says a synthetic imagination does not create anything. And he put create in italics. Mm-hmm. So I understand where he's coming from in terms of true creative power or flow. However, synthetic imagination is something, as you say, we use a lot in everyday life, in business. However, I've found that when we choose to do that only, we limit the potential of what that idea or thought could actually be or should be.
I agree.
You do?
I agree.
Yay. It's not a he said, she said.
No.
We got to ring the bell.
No, I'll ring the bell. I agree.
Yeah. Because because of, you mentioned, people as we get older, we're like, hurry up already. Let's get there. Let's do this. And we tend to just, as I mentioned in my power thought today, force ripe situations where we tend to say, okay, let's just do this and that'll make it work.
Yep.
And you end up having a car that's like this instead of a car where you just,
wheel it.
Yeah, you're chilling and rolling because you're running on a well-oiled machine. So that to me is a difference between synthetic and creative imagination.
I'm with that.
Yeah. So let's see if we can go back in time to childhood. What happens, because what happens when we grow up is we forget about these childhood curiosity. We forget about the wonder. We think it's childish to go there. But I want to go there today. So can we do some kind of imaginative something? I don't know if it's associated with crayons or I love crayons, so.
I'm like,
I do.
And I didn't even look over. I'm like, is she sniffing the crayon over there?
I sniff crayon. Okay, you know why I sniff crayons?
But I was like, she's over there sniffing the crayon, isn't she?
Oh my God. I sniff crayons because it takes me right back to childhood. Okay. It reminds me of when I was so excited to have my 64 pack with the sharpener on the back and I could just grab crayons and just create whatever. I've always been like that. My mom encouraged that in me to play. But why are we not playing as adults? Are we that serious about life?
Well, let's go back to the childhood curiosity. So imagine with me. All right. We got a unicorn with us, so we're head started, right? Just imagine a rainbow behind the unicorn, sparkles, dazzling stuff, whatever you need to get in that right state of mind. There are literally a set of archetypes that we pull up when we imagine. And when we do that, we go into a particular emotional state. Now, what's worth noticing is when you take the time to step away from stuff, first of all, do you feel instantly guilty because there's something you should be doing? Because that's the hurry part.
So true.
If I tell you, like a lot of times when I'm working with my clients, I tell them the first exercise is going to be 10 minutes of breathing. They're like, well, I'm already breathing. I'm like, you're not doing it right. That's the point that you're angry at me for mentioning breathing. It's noticing what your mind does to you when you set the intention to be quiet and attend to your inner thoughts, to basically your wellspring of energy, as opposed to the reactive, ooh, look squirrel, ooh, look TV, ooh, look funny joke, outside elements. There's so much more inside. Okay? So you go inwards. The first thing you do is you notice, what do you feel when you've taken the smallest iota of time for yourself? What's the first feeling that brings up? If it's guilt, if it's a sense of impatience, if it's annoyance, that's sort of the first layer you have to get through. Now, as you settle in and you make peace with the initial round of voices telling you should be doing this and that, you're going to get a second round of voices that come in. And for my clients, I like to do something called the white room experiment for this. Imagine that you're sitting in the middle of an entirely white room. Whatever you're sitting on, it's all white. You're dressed all in white. Everything in there is just pristine, archetypal light. And I use this because it's a Western metaphor, so don't get too deep in the fact you're like, well, why can't it be a black room? Different discussion.
Oh, Lord. I'm there, though.
I want to be clear that literally in certain cultures, that sense of peace would come from imagine yourself in an entirely black room. That works just as well. Pick one. Either way, you're in this huge room. The room goes on as far as you can imagine. As far forward, as far back, as far to the left, and as far as to the right as you can imagine. There's nothing in the room but you and one thought. Initially, you want that thought to be breathing. Now, you'll notice that other thoughts come in. These thoughts will tend to try to rush you, as we discussed. A lot of times, these thoughts will judge each other. A thought will pop up, and in science, they call this a chain of inference for all my docs out here. you kick off a cascade of thoughts, a chain of inference, thought, and they just run off. Now, what happens is, as we get older, different emotional states trigger different thoughts because we have these different circumstances that show up a lot, bad experiences that teach us not to think that thought because we associate that thought with something negative. But from within your white room, yeah, we're still in the white room, or the black room, from within your room, you want to acknowledge that the thought is floating in. You want to give that thought enough attention so that the thought is, and this is kind of weird, but this is your imagination again. Make the thought aware that you are aware of the thought. So give the thought your undivided attention. Mm-hmm. If the thought makes you angry, realize where in your body you feel that anger. If the thought makes your stomach knot up, if the thought makes your ears ring, if the thought makes you see red, whatever. It's when you acknowledge the thought doesn't keep turning up the volume. So this is your imaginary room. You control the room. A lot of us will try to shove the thought out because we were taught to do that. That's the point at which you lose control of your imagination. You don't shove a thought out. As a matter of fact, imagine that the whole room has some water in it and the thought floated in. I mean, if you need it to be on a boat or if you want it to be a bubble, just imagine that it's moving in at that rate. It's going to leave your mind at that rate. Mm-hmm. So it's as simple as imagining if you have water in your white room, just imagine that you wave your hands like you would in a pool if there was something you didn't want to touch that you were trying to move away. You know, don't judge yourself. Don't get angry about the thought. Don't try to shove it out because thoughts have a rebound thing. Like, don't look down. First thing you're going to do is look down. So you gently nudge the thought out of your consciousness. And what you'll find is, since your room is an infinite room, you can watch the thought fade away. As the thought fades away, the emotions associated with the thought also fade if you choose to let them.
So this exercise that you're taking us through, which I love, is the process of reconnecting with your imagination.
Yes.
Because you got to quiet all of those thoughts and observe the limiting beliefs, release them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because stuff will come up and you'll feel guilty for having space in your mind. You feel guilty for being at peace. And here's something fascinating. Okay. This is where your imagination gets constrained because usually during the day you're so busy doing other things that the emotion triggered by these thoughts that are now isolated in this huge white room, usually the kids are running around, the alarm is going off, you're trying to make a busy left turn into an intersection that you don't want to die over. So there are other layers on top of this simple process going on in the background. And those other layers, when you let them get away, what they do is they rush you into making decisions. They rush you into feeling those emotions that, because you didn't have time to give them the adequate time, you toss the emotions, you shove them in your back pocket, but the emotion stays there despite the thought not being there. So all those elements end up breaking your imagination. So really quickly you tend to be like, this is impossible.
Yeah.
Or this is inconceivable. As opposed to thinking to yourself, well, no, this is improbable, this is unlikely, but I'm at the right place and right time to imagine it, and then I am the person to bring it into being.
I love it.
So that's a basic imagination exercise.
Now, all of that's lovely, reconnecting with our creative imagination. What comes to mind right now is I don't know if you remember, but I shared a quote earlier this week by Deepak that says, imagination, the best use of imagination is creativity. The worst use of imagination is anxiety. So there's a default imagination that's happening all day long, right?
Yep.
If we're not conscious in doing the things that you're outlining right now.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your imagination kicks off thoughts all day with the associated emotions all day long. Something happens and your brain rapid fires a bunch of them, just like that. Okay?
Yeah.
The first one that bubbles up powerfully enough for you to be aware of it, because as humans we don't like uncertainty, we like to know what this situation means. When one bubbles up, we grab it, we hold on to it, and if we're not careful, we react to it immediately. but you do have the option of examining it, seeing if it's aligned with the outcome that you want, seeing if that's the life you want to create. That's the point at which we take control of our imagination.
Ooh, let's stick a pin right there, because that's where we're going to expand on this.
Yeah.
Let's acknowledge some of our, I see you have some comments for the conversation.
Yeah, my buddy Rick Schweiner is here. He's the one that did the cover for the Thinking About Quitting Medicine.
Oh,
our book.
okay.
Yeah, he did our
Rick.
book cover with Schweiner Publishing. Joe is there.
What is Joe saying? Do you want me to read that?
Joe says, children naturally meditate and imagination is fertile. Then the teacher says, wake up. And the child goes from alpha, a state of imagination, into beta, or a state of response. Yep.
Oh, I like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Who is that, Joe?
Yes.
Yeah, that's is it Dr. Joe?
No, that's Joe.
Okay, Joe. I'm calling him Doctor today.
You get the doctorate.
I like that because as children, this is where it begins, in that classroom where we should be encouraged to explore and create and imagine, and we're being told things like this: wake up, pay attention, study your work, all that's fine, but we need to incorporate our imaginative power with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, David J. Knight Sr., he is the founder of, now David, correct me if I'm wrong, the Christian Social Network.
Okay.
So he's got an amazing network of like-minded people that he's brought together just to create positive change. So he says, creative imagination operates through the sixth sense and is shared in the subconscious. This is the medium through which new facts are revealed. Amen?
Come on now, David.
There it is.
That is so true.
Yeah, because our most useful and nurturing information that is relevant, this is the whole, you are the average of the 5 people around you.
Yes.
The people around you have been swimming around in this soup along with you. They too have generations of wisdom that has come together for the situation. But if you become receptive and let it in, and surround yourself with the right people, then one of the books I read, and I can't remember which one, Hidden Agenda calls it buoyancy. Mm-hmm. It's the concept of surrounding yourself with like-minded people, tuned into your signal, aligned with your values, and focus on vision and purpose similar enough to yours, where each of us doing our journey becomes part of a larger, more synergistic journey. Thanks, David.
I love that comment from David. I love what you just shared too. We're the sum total of the people we hang out with. That has everything to do with our ability to imagine and create. Yep. And that's why you're in my camp.
Thank you. Aw, I'm blushing. Dr. Jamila Battle is here.
Hey, Dr. Jamila.
Dr. Nicole T. Rock is here. Dr. Kendra Wooten. Well, doctors are showing out today now.
I'm telling you, they're up. I don't know about everybody else.
Yep. Tiffany is here. Well, we saw Dr. Tony was watching earlier.
Nice.
Dr. Connie was here earlier.
Oh, yeah. Nice crew.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
So boy, New Keller is here. What's up, New Keller?
Hey there. So if you all are just tuning in, we just want to welcome you to CLB Live with Dr. Manny St. Victor. We're broadcasting live from Washington, D.C. and Listen Vision Studios, and today we're talking about imagination and the power of creative thought. I can hear that.
God keeps it simple, man.
It goes with the white room.
It does.
So if you'd like to participate in the conversation, we'd love to hear your thoughts. This is an ongoing conversation. Just use the hashtag CLB Live chat online.
Yeah. Now, we're almost at the halfway mark, so I'm going to let you know on the other side, I need y'all to have pencils or crayons if you can read your writing with crayons. I'm dealing with doctors, though, so y'all probably need the finest tip tool you can find.
Get a colored pencil.
So your hieroglyphics will be appreciable. Get a colored pencil. There you go. Because whereas in the first part of the hour we talk generally, what we're going to look at is some actual steps for imagination deconstruction and how that affects you emotionally, how that affects your motivation, how that affects your vision, and as such, how that affects your end outcome. Okay?
Yes. I'd also like to touch on, if that's included, it may be, with that default imagination, or when you're consciously imagining our lives and our future, how that's creating our circumstance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So are we taking our break?
I don't know. I just wanted to make sure I got that piece in there.
It sounded like we're setting up for a break.
See, I used to watch Dukes of Hazzard growing up, so I'm going to put you over the cliff like... I'm going to have you in the air when you come back, right?
Yeah. Let's... a little. Kyle, can we cue up our Divine Connection Spotlight? You ready? All right.
let's see. I'm gonna see if I can turn this so they can see that.
We're talking about hashtag imagination, the power of creative thought. You're watching CLB Live with Dr. Manny St. Victor out of Listen Vision Studios in Washington, D.C. Welcome to you all watching there all over the world, as well as our Facebook Live participants.
Now, I don't speak Chinese, but like when I was looking at analytics, because y'all know I'm a math person, I saw China. What's up, China?
What's up, China?
I saw India. What's up, India?
I know everybody knows what's up.
What's up?
What's up? Yeah, we have a lot of viewers all over the world.
Yeah, that feels awesome.
It does.
Yeah.
It gives me the warm and fuzzies.
It does, right here in my chest. She's
okay.
Like, that's not viewers, that's rum. Oh.
What's in your cup?
It's ice water. It's ice water. But like certain feelings you don't forget. Like
my goodness.
College was made off Captain Morgan, so whatever.
Never a dull moment with Dr. Manny, I tell ya. So we're talking about imagination. You gave us a really great exercise to use and practice, I should say, to reconnect with that creative imagination.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that at the halfway point after our break, we're going to talk about triggers and stuff like that, how it impacts our lives.
Yep. Okay, so let's back up a bit. Earlier I mentioned what traditionally they call the white room experiment, where you put yourself in an absolutely white room in your imagination. In real life, you don't do this in driving on the highway or anything like that, because then you'll end up in a hospital room, which is also white, but just don't do it that way.
Okay.
So we're talking about, this is an activity you want to do to cleanse your palate. In the morning, you have a spike in cortisol, and what you want to do is you want to fight that by bringing your body into what they call a parasympathetic state, white room. Don't imagine on top of negative stuff going on, because then your imagination is already ricocheting on autopilot. Mm-hmm. Your imagination kicks in automatically in what they call an amygdala hijack. Mm-hmm. Big dark shadow flies over, you know to run. It's sort of a broad, uncertain, negative imagination. And this is where the deconstruction kicks in. If you're projecting your imagination forward without controlling it, on autopilot, you get that worry, that anxiety. Okay? If you're projecting your imagination and you feel as if the future is advancing faster than you're able to keep up and change. Okay? So, that's that one. On the back, looking back, you have a sense of criticism, a sense of being super trapped in the present. Okay? So, those are the two things to pay attention. You want to return to the present. You want to imagine based off a nice clean palate. The clean palate you always have with you is your breathing. So by doing daily breathing practices, 5 minutes first, you'll notice what your brain does automatically, emotionally, when you try to go inwards to imagine. Okay? That's layer one. Okay. So layer one is start with a clean palate. Imagine it like, imagine, recursive. I'm a meta geek, so for people who know what meta is. So imagine that when you go to a store and you're sampling different fragrances, before they take you from one fragrance to another, they're going to do what? They're going to put you coffee beans. So you want to cleanse your palate because you don't want to just put one fragrance on top of another. You don't want to imagine one thing and the emotions that go with it right on top of the other. Okay? So what you want to do is get to that baseline. Now, once you get to baseline and you practice returning to baseline and noticing what's going on in that period, then you can start doing the neat stuff. Okay? So the neat stuff about your imagination is that by default it works in particular ways. After something happens to you, negative, your imagination kicks in automatically. And what it does is it looks at the first thing that you did differently from what you usually do, and it immediately jumps to the conclusion that it was your fault that the bad thing happened because you did that one different thing. That's how our imagination works on autopilot. Because survival. If you got bitten by a tiger, what you want to do is look back and be like, going forward, let me imagine ways in which I won't be lunch. So this is survival techniques.
Yeah.
Society has got more advanced, less saber-toothed tigers hanging out. And as such, we've got to the point where when we're not in fight or flight mode, we can create. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to capture that thought when it comes to mind, and you can do one of two things. Write this part down. You can do additive, or you can do subtractive imagination. Additive imagination is where when whatever comes to mind, you add things to it and see if that makes you feel better. Okay? When you reimagine the situation. So let's think of a good example. If car accidents are one that often get people. So if you happen to get into a car accident and it happened to have happened because you took a different turn on the way home, subconsciously, if you hadn't thought about it, you have a tendency to be like, wow, if I hadn't taken that road, I wouldn't have had a wreck. And it's not rational. Don't expect it to be rational. Okay? What you want to do is, when you notice yourself thinking that, let's do subtractive first, because in the car accident, it's the easiest one.
Yeah.
You'll say to yourself, okay, instead of focusing on where I can blame myself, let me look at how I can subtract an element from it and think about how it could have been different. And you subtract an element that is beyond your control, as opposed to an element within your control. Okay? So you think to yourself, what are some different interpretations of how that accident happened? Okay? Someone plowed out of nowhere, beyond my control. And as such, you say to yourself, okay, imagine the event without the person having plowed through. Okay, I would have had a better day. Okay? So emotionally, you return yourself to that state. Okay? So that was an additive. Was that additive? No, that was subtractive. Subtractive. Yeah. Now, additive imagination is when you add different elements to something and you imagine it that way. Okay? So say, I'll use the peanut butter and jelly one. Simple, because the simpler the imagination exercise, the more energy you can put into your own version. Say you had a sandwich, peanut butter sandwich. You bite into it, something's missing. Things like that happen to us all the time, where you do something and something is missing. Your brain automatically looks for the thing that's missing. But by not putting negative emotion in it and choosing to add another layer, what's missing? Is it
jelly?
At first I thought you said chili. I was like, peanut butter and chili is nasty.
No, jelly.
Wrong edition, but jelly. So you see that instantly, when you add that element to it, you get rid of the uncertainty in your imagination, the question of what is missing. You add that. And then you can imagine it as a different experience. Now, where this becomes powerful is that we only live in what we imagine. So as you get more and more courageous, you start to add and remove elements in there that you can control. And then next time the situation shows up in the future, you're able to live in a version that you've added elements, moving it closer to your ideal.
Using creative imagination.
Yes.
Because I'm kind of going back to, I love your analogies, by the way, always beneficial. It takes me back to the creative imagination, because what we do in those scenarios with additive is what you call it, imagination.
Additive and subtractive, yep.
Love these new terms. So additive imagination, what we tend to do is use our own reasoning, our own understanding, to enhance or improve whatever that situation may be.
Yeah.
And this is where my perspective would come in, where that's where we should take the time, or invest, I should say, the time to connect with infinite intelligence, so that we can receive the inspiration to improve that situation.
Yeah.
Because that's where the scenario will become exponential in terms of growth as opposed to incremental, which is what our human understanding gives us.
Yeah. Now, let's crank it up and make it a little more out there. And this is also something I think Napoleon Hill brings up. Sometimes in real time, in a situation, there's nothing outside of you that you can change right then and there. So then the challenge becomes, what can I change about my attitude about the situation? And this is where you create choice with power. You choose what emotional layer to put on the situation.
Yes.
And a lot of times in therapeutic practices, they call this reframing, reappraisal, what else? Reattribution. There's a lot of different names they put on it. But the point is that if there's something you have to do, after you get in the habit of noticing when your imagination is triggered, to pause for a split second and look at what you have to do. And even if you can just for a split second bring to mind why it's to your advantage to do it, you instantly shift your intention. And that makes all the difference in the world, because then you don't get this cortisol bath of being overwhelmed by something you don't want to do.
Or have no control over. Yeah. It reminds me of the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, honey. Yeah. An attitude definitely determines our altitude in those situations, the ones we can't change. Yeah. But can we change them through our attitude?
Yeah, I walked right into it. Yep. Yeah. So,
love it.
What most of the data is showing right now, there's a field of positive psychology, and it's not a new field. It's several old fields renamed because, repackaging. But what they're finding is that when you're thinking positively, you're more curious, you're more intrinsically motivated, you're more likely to do the actions that lead to the outcomes.
Yes.
As opposed to when you're pessimistic. When you're feeling pessimistic, you're digging in your heels because you kind of don't want to step into the future. You want to stay in the past because what you're telling yourself is whatever's waiting on the other side of your actions is worse. Whether it's being overwhelmed, being unprepared, being under new stress with a new job. Yeah. These are all things that you'll imagine, that trigger a fear.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I'm intently listening, but it's true. It reminds me of one of my favorite movies is The Matrix, and the scene where Neo realized that he was the one, and he stopped the bullets. If you haven't seen this movie, you just gotta see the movie. But he stopped the bullets, and then he did like a flex, and the walls kind of moved with him. That's what I think of when I think of creating change. Yeah. And our attitude, because once his attitude shifted, his entire world transformed in front of his eyes.
Yeah, because what you'll find a lot of times is that it's not what's outside of you that's really limiting you, but the negative and positive emotions that you've associated with those things. So if you get angry quickly, if you get annoyed quickly, a lot of times you walk right past an opportunity because a negative emotion has kicked in, or something looks like too much work. And this is where they say attitude determines whether something is a threat or an opportunity. The thing pops up as an event. It doesn't really have any definition outside of your imagination. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah. So what do we say to people who, they're all kind of, hey, Margaret, thank you for joining. Yes. And everyone over on Dr. Manny's side there, thanks everyone for joining. So what do we say to the person who's like, so you're telling me that I'm in this circumstance because of my attitude? Well, that whole neck roll is the first problem, right?
Real talk?
Yeah, let's keep it real. That's how we keep it on this show. What do we say to these people? So you're telling me that I'm living in this, home that I don't want to live in, or I'm not in my dream home yet, or whatever that ideal circumstance is because of my attitude?
Well, the second someone comes at me with, you're telling me, pretty much they already know their answer, and I'm not, a lot of times people kill the messenger. So I'm like, if you're not ready to hear it, then okay.
Yeah.
I'll be like, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think? And
that's a good answer.
Really, a lot of times outcomes, when you limit your imagination often, it's not how we think. Well, it's literally how we think, because that's what imagination is. As soon as I said that, I thought that. Sorry, words matter, folks. When you limit your imagination, usually where you're limiting yourself is by shortening your planning horizon. The more confident you are in your ability to keep promises to yourself along a time continuum, the further out you're able to plan, knowing that you won't end up sabotaging yourself because your mood went funny somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Okay? So a person with a shorter planning horizon often has a bit of pessimism, a bit of lower self-esteem as to what the outcomes are going to be, an external locus of control, which means a lot of times they quickly are looking to see who to blame for something, even if it's themselves.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the earlier exercise where by default your brain is going to hiccup an interpretation of the situation. The work of imagination at that point is willpower. And what's important to understand about willpower is not about affecting things outside and around you. Willpower is about returning your attention to whatever is in what they call your working memory, whatever's in your consciousness right then and there, and seeing before you act on it, before you emotionally react to it, where you can flex it and adjust it so that the story in your head is in alignment with what you want to have as an outcome in the long run. And
thus creating the outcome. Yeah, so we know this. I'm just reiterating for the conversation. Yeah. What's going on up in here is manifesting around us.
Yeah.
Whether we believe it or not, aware of it or not, or know it or not, that's what's happening. And it's an introspection that needs to take place. I love your exercise, by the way. I got to go back to that. That may be the snippet. With the white room or the black room.
Yeah.
Once you gave me that permission, it immediately changed to a black room.
Yeah.
Just love darkness. But yeah, this is something that I realized over time, always being someone who's been tapped into my literal creativity as a graphic designer. And as I was coming of age, yes, at the tender age of 40, I came of age. It was brought to my attention by infinite intelligence that this is what's happening in my life, is whatever's going on inside of me, that's what's being reflected externally, whether it's the people, the company I'm keeping, the lifestyle I'm living. And that's where I started to have that mindset shift. And I took that ability to create something from my imagination into a work of art. I started applying that to my life. And that's when I saw things starting to shift for me. It was a huge revelation for me.
You're sitting here tuned in and literally watching what is the product of our shared imagination.
I know.
So it's a little meta there.
Cool.
Yeah.
We should share our story because we met online. We immediately had an overlap because of various reasons, right? Mindset, island culture,
shared vision. Yeah.
Shared vision, and here we are today. What, 4 years later, 3 years later?
Yeah. When you meet other people that share elements of what you're imagining, that's the point at which you're able to cooperate. And cooperation is what's going to allow you to have that synergy where a group of you come together, a group of us come together and move forward. Yes. In that case, we serve the purpose of protecting the element of imagination that we all share. Because most of your failures will come from forgetfulness, doubt, and distraction, and making a decision but not acting on it because you weren't sure because you checked with the 3 people around you and none of them thought it was a good idea. And it was. You were just asking the wrong people. So the most important underlying part of imagination that makes it powerful is when you eliminate the rigidity of it and realize that the stuff that's in your mind is so powerful, the stuff that you've imagined, that you project it onto everything around you. As such, when you add a layer of flexibility to your imagination, because it is your imagination, and as such you can twist it, then as you look around, again, you'll realize that there's a bunch of stuff you're filtering out and creating this artificial scarcity because it's time to grow up, be realistic, and be mature. And so we do our best impersonation of an adult, which is really just our best impersonation of some sort of curmudgeon, you know?
Good word. Yeah, it's, what is an adult, really? We're intrinsically the same physical person with the same innate talents and abilities as when we came out of the womb. It's just a matter of maturing those qualities, deepening those qualities, not eliminating them as society has taught us to do. And that's what we have to unlearn. Yep. My exercise for imagination is just to let my mind wander after I do the breathing, which you have helped me so graciously with.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I love my breathing exercises. So once I clear the palate, as you say, or clean my palate, then I just allow myself to just break the rules of what we think is normal. It usually takes place for me in the form of coloring, and I'm not talking about the little coloring books. I don't have anything against the books, the coloring books, but I think those are limiting our imagination. They're relaxing, but are they really expanding our imagination? Get a box of crayons. I just love crayons. It can be colored pencils, it can be paint, you can use your hands, you can use a brush. There are no rules, and just create what you feel your world looks like on a piece of paper with drawings. You don't have to be able to draw to do that. There are no rules that the sun has to be yellow. That's what man said, and that's why we make the sun yellow. But it's not literally yellow. It can be red, it can be orange, it can be anywhere in between, it can be brick red. So that's what I do to allow my imagination to flow, is I literally create something without rules. That's my exercise.
Well, mine is usually like just capturing a stream of consciousness.
How's that defined?
I write all day.
I
literally write all day.
If you all are not connected with Dr. Manny, hi Mark, how are you? If you're not connected with Dr. Manny on Facebook, reading his posts, I love, love, love your posts.
Thank you.
Because you write the way that I express, in drawings and stuff. You write in pictures.
Thank you.
Yeah, love your imagination. And so everyone knows, I asked Dr. Manny to have this conversation today because I think you're one of the most powerful creative Imagineers out there.
Stop. There are people here, I'm crying.
You're right.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No, you are, though. I love your beautiful mind.
Thank you.
Yes. So we have just a few minutes before we wrap up. Any closing thoughts? Or have we covered most of it?
We've covered, most of it. I think
yeah.
Imagination is limitless, so...
I know. We could go on and on, right?
Yeah.
And we will.
One of the key things is to go back to... if you missed it earlier, we talked about the white room experiment or the white room exercise. It could also be the black room exercise. Choose your quiet room. Create that room. Revisit that room several times throughout the day when the universe rattles your cage. Yeah. Ideally, daily practice with that. And see what emerges in the quiet you eventually create in that space. I think that's going to be the most powerful thing, because that's when you're going to be able to move from synthetic imagination, which is fantastic, to creative imagination, which is really a connection to collective intelligence. It's a connection that goes way back before your birth, before your parents' birth, before your grandparents' birth. It's just, this is a larger energetic thing that you can tap into once you dull the noise.
Beautifully said.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, quiet space. That is the origination point, and the ending, and everything in between. Yep. It's infinite when we create that space for ourselves.
Great.
Beautifully said. The notable quotable that I extracted from today's episode came from you.
Thank you.
When we are not in fight or flight mode, we create. I love that.
I said that.
You did. You said a lot today, and I appreciate it.
I'll be talking.
No, I appreciate it. This is why I asked for you to have this conversation with us today, because, again, You are my Uber Imagineer over here.
Thank you.
And I love that our combined imagination as well.
Yes, ma'am.
For all of you watching, the conversation does not end here. You can count on that. On CLBlive.tv, we have an event page created just for this episode. All you have to do is go to facebook.com/CLBlive.tv, click on events, and you'll see it right there at the top. You can join the conversation there. The replay will be posted there as well, the official replay. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, you get to see all of the beautiful graphics and what everyone else sees on WLVS.
Production fireworks.
The production fireworks, right? Thank you to our production team as well for always keeping us on point.
Thank you.
Next week, we will be back, same time, same place, and we will be having another brilliant conversation that we are inviting you to. And I think that's everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you to our Facebook family for joining us. We're looking forward to having your thoughts as well on imagination. And we will see each and every one of you next week. Be blessed and keep on imagining, honey.
Have a great week, folks. Yeah.
Wait.
You and the crayon sniffing.
I love crayons.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Connie. I gotta come back around here and get the broad view. I like to see it from here. Hey man, I'm living the dream. Well, wait for the camera. How much technology do you have over here? Like, what's this just there?
There's a lot. This we just got in, brand new. It's help it kind of like so. Sometimes there's like little delays and stuff like that with the stream, and so so it helps. Like I can see what the viewers are seeing.
Okay. So this is like the viewer experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always gonna be a slight delay.
Okay.
With just because of how much media we're streaming.
Okay. But how do you not lose your shit like between that and us? Because with me, that's overwhelming.
It's just about time management, micro time management, I guess, between this, that, and making sure everything's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I lost it. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Great show. This is my first time working with you, though, right? Because the first show you did, Because the first show.
I think the first time I was working with you, I was with Mike.
But that was him alone.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was with Mike last.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. That was fun.
Your smile is wide and you're surrounded by friends.
All right, y'all. I'm having too much fun.
Ladies are smiling, libido is strong. Can't even make the distinction between right and wrong. But then you feel your dopamine.
Are you still broadcasting?
I'm still. Why not? All right. I'll see y'all next week.